Hi, I'm Erik Hall. I'm the digital sports editor at the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. I'm joined by Henry Freeman, who was APSE president in 1987-88, and he received the 2017 Red Smith Award. He was the founding sports editor of USA Today, where he worked from 81 to 89. He also had stints as an editor in Wilmington, Delaware, and Westchester County, New York. Thanks for joining me, Henry.
Thanks for having me.
How did you get involved with APSE?
Well, excuse me, I'm sorry. Just trying to reposition here. I know you'll edit. So like most, I guess most folks, I mean, I was assistant sports editor in Greenville, South Carolina. There's a regional APSE meeting, which my editor wasn't going to, so I went to and got to meet a lot of great people. The contacts of APSE are, I think, one of the great values of APSE, and that certainly was the case with me. So,
how'd you go from that to ascending to presidency?
well, obviously, when we started USA Today, in addition to our role as a national newspaper, also coordinated cadet-wide sports activities for things like the Olympics and the Super Bowls and stuff like that. So APSE, was extremely valuable, way to interact with other sports editors, and not only throughout cadet, but the rest of the country. So as I got more and more involved, I was asked to consider running for a position as an officer, and of course that led to being president.
What are some accomplishments from your time as president that you're most proud of?
Well, I think the thing that most people would talk about is that, we had a real financial problem in the mid-'80s. I won't go into the details of how we got there, but it required that we sit down and take a pretty serious look at the organization, which I led. We found out, among other things, in certain membership categories, we were losing $25 for every new member that we brought into the organization. So that required a number of things, some rewriting of the bylaws, in addition to some changes to the due structure, and reaching out to some of our larger papers for a one-time assessment to help us get through the transition period. But it put in motion a number of things. It put in motion a platform that built some continuity from your one officer year to your next year, and some institutional memory into what we were doing. And then it also put us on a stable enough platform to be able to support the regional to the organization, and bringing in more professional speakers and a number of other things. I think one of the things that's really important in this time also is I was very fortunate to have a really good group of officers around me. Bill Dwyer at the LA Times followed me as president. Steve Doyle's another one. Jeff Waller's another one. And because we were able to get a lot of things on a more stable basis, it enabled us to start looking at some longer term efforts. And one of the things that Bill really wanted to spend time with, Bill Dwyer in his time as president, was working with a lot of the writer organizations on some ethical issues and some professionalism, and our outreach with the various professional commissioners and things like that. So we were able to lay some of the early platform for that at the end of my year as president, that let Bill get a running start on that. Just a lot of things that we kind of take for granted, I think, now. And well, I don't think we take anything for granted in these times but nevertheless, things that APSE is known for, that we do out there, our support of diversity, our internship programs, and a lot of other things, so that we became more than just an organization that did a contest, and really built on the vision of some of the early founders like Dave Smith and others had.
At the time you were president, it was about 15 years into the creation of the organization. What do you think to see APSE reach 50 years now?
Well, I think one of the things that is interesting is how, just as the way that it would have been very easy for APSE that started out as an organization centered on print daily journalism to have suffered with a lot of the other things that have plagued that part of the business. And the fact that we have reached out and embraced digital journalists as well, I think is the organizations to be proud of. I think it's a much more diverse group. Certainly things that were efforts that we pushed back then, and we were very supportive when Awesome started the Association of Women in Sports Media. You look at some of our early women presidents, you look at our efforts in other areas of diversity. I think it's doing okay for itself.
When you received the 2017 Red Smith Award, the story announcing it really emphasized how important your change of the financials was to the continuation of the organization. In light of that, do you feel some pride that the organization has reached 50 years now?
Well, I think anything you're involved in a leadership role, whether it's the president of APSE or the founding sports editor USA Today or the top editor in Westchester, you always feel well when the organization continues to do well. So yeah, I mostly feel proud of, whether it's APSE or whether it's the staff at USA Today or in Westchester, is really the people that I was fortunate enough to work with. Ultimately, it doesn't care. Even though you have the top title, it only comes down to you're only as good as the people you work with.
Yeah. The 2017 Red Smith Award, what did that mean to you? You're one of only 8 people that's been president of APSE and also to win the Red Smith Award. Could you talk about that?
Well, I think since I had not been in sports since 1989, it was just nice to be remembered, first of all. I'm very fortunate there are a couple of people that thought I was deserving of that award. When you look at the list, it's kind of a who's who in sports journalism. So yeah, it was terrific. It was nice to it was nice that the convention that year was in New Orleans, which is where my grandmother is from. So I always enjoy going to New Orleans. But it was also great. It got me involved back I was very glad to see Terry Taylor, who I supported, and Christine Brennan, who I nominated, get the Red Smith Award after that also.
Yeah. What has APSE meant to you professionally?
Well, I've already talked about the contacts that you make through it. There are a lot of people I've stayed in touch with. Professionally, I mean, if it had not been from that first APSE convention I went to, I would not have met Wick Temple, who was then the sports editor of AP. If I had not met Wick Temple, he would have not mentioned to the Wilmington News Journal, who was looking for recommendations for assistant sports editor, that they should interview me. Had I not gone to the Wilmington News Journal, I would not have come to the attention of Al Newhart. Had I not have come to the attention of Al Newhart, I would not have been the founding sports editor of USA Today. Had I not been the founding sports editor of USA Today, I don't know that I would have moved from sports to being a top editor and to being a publisher. So, you could make a case that it all started with the contacts I made through APSE.
Yeah. What has APSE meant to you personally?
Well, I mean, beyond what I just mentioned,
Yeah.
which is, I mean, everything that, it's funny. You never know the things that will lead you down life's path. And I got involved in sports journalism when I was in high school. I was sick my junior year and couldn't play sports that year. And was asked by a local sports editor if I wanted to call the games in, and pretty quickly it was an afternoon paper. I started writing stories in longhand and dropped them off at the paper on the way to school, and they started publishing them with a byline, and that's kind of what got me into sports journalism. So you just don't know the things that will happen. I mean, I went to the University of Georgia, worked with the athletic department as a student assistant, then worked for the daily paper in Athens, not the student paper, the town newspaper. So I was, because of all of that kind of stuff, I mean, I was assistant sports editor of a 105,000 circulation paper when I was 22 years old. And you just don't know where the breaks are going to come. So I firmly believe that my personal involvement with APSE, besides meeting a lot of people that have been good friends over the years, played a major role in where my career went professional.
Yeah. Do you want to share any stories about those friendships or any other stories that stand out to you from APSE events?
Well, I'll say that when all was said and done, the year I was president and the transition from what we had been dealing with was a rough time for the organization. And as I said, we rewrote the bylaws to try to set us up for some success in the future, which fortunately happened. So I have to say that one of my fondest memories of APSE was when I finished at the dinner, when I officially was no longer president. Bill was the president, and Dave Smith came up to me and said, "You were a good president," and that meant a lot to me. That from him and some other folks. When you look at the foundation on which the organization was built, it's some of the most influential, legendary people who've ever run sports departments. And to get that feedback from somebody that you've looked up to means a lot.
What's some advice that you would have for future presidents of APSE?
Well, I think that the profession that we all love, which is sports journalism, and not only faces some of its biggest challenges right now, but it also faces some of its biggest opportunities. And I think how you help the membership navigate through that is extremely important. So I think that that the type of professional seminars that we do are essential to people understand what the issues are, and to people building their professional expertise to navigate what we're dealing with now. I mean, your job is, in digital, 15 years ago, not many of those jobs existed.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is that, we really have a situation now. Again, I said some of the big challenges and some of the opportunities, but you look at so many of the folks, whether it's the National Football League or Major League Baseball or any place else, that historically newspapers had a synergistic relationship with, that now have decided to get into the content business. So they have become our competitors, as well as someone that, if the product that they produced, which makes sports so great in the United States, was not there, then we wouldn't be sports writers and sport yet. So we have to have a relationship with them. We have to have an avenue to talk with them and deal with stuff. And yet they have become our competitors as well.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to share about your APSE memories or anything else along those lines?
Well, I don't know about the memories, but I would like to point out something I said when I accepted the Red Smith Award, which I accepted on behalf of the entire staff, the remarkable sports staff we had to start USA Today. And that's that journalism is under attack these days from all kinds of different fronts. And there are a lot of people out there that would just assume that particularly mainstream journalists didn't have the platform that we've historically had. And you know, and I said it at that time that you may not think when you see something like you're being attacked for whether it's credible or professional, that you play a role in that in the sports department. But as I said at the time, if you get the score of a high school game wrong or a kid's name wrong, then you have someone out there saying, well, how do you expect them to be telling me the truth about what's happening at the city council or in a national story when they can't even get the score of a high school game right? And as part of that, some of the best top editors I've known, people like, Paul Anger, are folks who started out as sports editors. I mean, in the sports section, you wind up dealing with almost every different type of story and situation the rest of the paper has to deal with. And yet the rest of the newspaper doesn't deal with that broad a scope. I mean, in sports, you have to do breaking news coverage, you have to do feature coverage, you have to cover tragedies, like someone is killed, such as the situation recently at Georgia with the offensive lineman who was killed in a car crash. It's all of this wide spectrum of things that we're expected to do in sports. And I think it's one of the absolute great place for leaders in a newsroom to come from.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time, Henry. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Eric. Thank you.
Thanks so much.